Welcome to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge, your front row seat to the boldest ideas and smartest strategies in the marketing game. Your host is Reed Hansen, Chief Growth Officer at MarketSurge.
Hello and welcome back to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge. So let's be honest for a second. Most marketing messages don't fail because the product is bad. They fail because the story is boring or just self-congratulatory. Today's guest has spent decades fixing that exact problem. Henry DeVries is the best-selling author of Persuade with a Story. He's also a Forbes columnist and the behind-the-scenes force who's helped publish and ghostwrite over 300 business books. He's doubled agency revenues, doubled brand awareness for billion-dollar companies, and now teaches leaders, marketers, and sales teams how to stop making themselves the hero and actually start persuading people. If you sell anything, this episode will change how you communicate forever. Henry, welcome to the show.
Pete, I'm so excited to talk about how human brains are hardwired for stories.
I love it. I think it's a really important topic and maybe not something that a lot of people in business or marketing positions come by naturally. So I'd be curious, what pulled you into using storytelling as a business weapon? Like, what's your background? Where did you get these skills? Where did you learn that this was so important?
I started writing professionally when I was in high school, and I've been writing ever since. So I've had a career in marketing, and I've always had a side hustle in journalism. And I just learned that there were certain stories that resonated with people over and over again. And if I could frame my articles in journalism around one of the 8 great stories, then I would get more readers, more traction, have more impact, more influence.
Very interesting. Are these 8 stories, great stories as you describe, are they well known or are they frameworks, or can you tell us a little bit about?
They're well known because everybody's hardwired for these stories. So they might not have studied them, but they know. And I did not originate this. This is R&D, rob and duplicate. So my research led me to a man by the name of Christopher Booker, who wrote a book called The 7 Great Plots. And he analyzed every play, opera, movie, TV show, and found out that there were these first 7 and then an 8th that came along that repeated over and over again. As a business journalist, I went and looked at the 100 greatest business books of all time, and I found that the same 8 stories were being told in those books.
Interesting. So now we'll get into some of the details, but now you've worked with so many books, you've co-authored, you've written your own. What would you say is the current state of like the marketplace's ability to use good stories or good storytelling? How are we doing?
Well, we're not doing good because the state of the marketplace is there's a coming AI apocalypse. And AI is like your drunk uncle. I mean, sometimes they say good things, but most of the times they hallucinate and you got to sort through it. But what they don't do is they're not really in tune with the psychological aspects of a story that's engaging and will pull people along. So what I teach is most people have a hidden asset, an asset that they don't even know they have, and that is their defining problem solution stories. And these are the stories that prove to people that you can really help them.
Interesting. How does one discover that story? Is that part of your process to help them?
Sure, I'll explain it.
Yeah.
First, you have to realize that this is science-based.
Okay.
Recent developments in neurosciences prove that people make decisions not with the logical part of their brain, but with their emotional part of the brain. And science has also revealed how do we access the emotional part of somebody's brain. For thousands and thousands of years, humans have learned, evaluated, studied by being told stories. So we're story processing machines. So we want to do what Hollywood does, and Hollywood is the emotion picture capital of the world, and we need to get people emotionally involved with the story that we're telling.
Okay. So for those that make the attempt, what are some of the more common mistakes in storytelling that a lot of marketers or
Number one problem, and it's getting the characters mixed up, because every great story has three main characters. It has a protagonist, call it the hero, the person who's driving the story, and then it has a nemesis, a villain, somebody who's trying to stop the protagonist from getting what they want. And then a third character is the mentor character, the person who has wisdom, advice, and the protagonist gets what they want and defeats the nemesis by following the advice of the mentor. So here's the mistake. I find marketers want to make themselves the hero of the story. And they'll say, Henry, you don't understand. We did really great things. I said, I do understand. But if you tell the story that way, people are not going to relate to the story because you want them to identify with the protagonist, the hero. And it should be somebody like them who went from mess to success. And you are the mentor character. If it's Star Wars, they're Luke Skywalker, or Rey, if you like the modern one, and you're Yoda. You know, you're the wise person. Well, who likes to be a short green person? But that's who you are. If you do it the other way, where you're the hero, you made your prospect the damsel in distress that gets rescued. And nobody wants to identify with the damsel in distress. So that's why I teach people to say, make your prospect the hero of the story.
Interesting. That also sparks a shift in my own thinking. I run a marketing agency, and sometimes my default is to talk in sales content as if I've overcome these challenges. I will overcome these challenges to get you more leads. And I think that does clarify in my mind. I will show you the way that you will clear the field of competitors and source those leads. Something like that. Like that might be an application.
Well, let me tell one from my publishing company.
Yeah, please.
And it'll demonstrate. So this is the story of Penny Reed. We meet Penny in the year 2015. She's in an 800 square foot apartment that she's sharing with her teenage daughter. She's at her kitchen table, and there is a stack of unpaid bills. And Penny has no idea how she is going to pay these bills. And her situation is a far cry from when she lived in a 4,000 square foot home on the river in Memphis, Tennessee. And her husband was her employer. And her husband gave her all her client work. But he's no longer her husband. Now, Penny's a rare individual. She just knows if you're going to dream, dream big. And she said, in 2 years, I'm going to make $200,000 a year as a author and expert speaker. And that's when we met. And I said, Penny, what do you know how to do better than anyone else? She says, oh, I've got this. I know how to help dentists get cash flow and enjoy life. Let me tell you how screwed up dentists are. They borrow money to go to college, then they borrow money to go to dental school, then they borrow money to open a practice, and they think they own a business. A business owns them. And indentured servant until they can pay off the debt or find somebody to take it off their hands. But I know how to give them cash flow and time to enjoy life. I know how to teach them how to grow their dental business. And I said, bingo, we have an audience, we have a problem, we have a solution. She goes, oh, great. So we're going to write this book and then publish it and then get me speaking engagements and eventually I get clients. I go, oh, no. You're going to start making a phone call a day while we write the book. And she says, who am I going to call? I said, you're going to call people who book speakers to talk to dentists or dentists who might need a marketing consultant. And she said, oh, I'm going to run out of people to call in a week. I said, no, you're not. There's 1 million of them, and they're multiplying like rabbits. I'm going to fast forward to the end of the story. It's 2 years later. She's at her desk. She presses the print button, and her QuickBooks comes out of the computer, and it says gross profit $200,000, $100,000 from speaking, $100,000 from consulting. That's how this can happen. This is how long it can take. Penny gave me permission to use her name and tell you that story on two conditions. Condition number one was, don't make my ex-husband the villain of the story. He's not a villain. We just didn't want to be married anymore. And two, tell him now it's up to $280,000. Okay. So let's break that apart. I didn't say, let me tell you how I rescued Penny Reed, who was broke, had no clients, and I taught her how to write a book, and I got her speaking engagements, and I got her making $200,000 a year. And so she went from being bankrupt to being affluent. I was like, no, that's not the story people want to hear. I'll tell you another example. So I spoke to business leaders in Atlanta, and one was the managing partner of one of the largest law firms in America. They have offices throughout the country. And his job as managing partner is to recruit more attorneys to work in the firm because its capacity is their issue. Mm-hmm. So I had him tell me, well, what's a story you tell people? And he said, well, let me tell you how great our firm is, and we're this, and we're that, and we're this, all this, and a bag of chips, and, it goes on and on. I said, okay, are you open to an idea? I said, tell me about one attorney who was struggling. When you talked to him, you hired him in the firm, and now he's doing great. So we'll call that Mary's story. So then we recrafted it where he talked about Mary. And then he came in and said, Mary, your problems aren't unusual. What you need is a team behind you. So she joined our team and all this. And after 2 years, Mary is completely booked. She's making 6 figures. And that's the power of the team. He called me about a month later. He said, I don't know why I thought I couldn't believe it, but he said, you won't believe how powerful that story is in attracting attorneys. And I believe because you're no longer the hero, you're the mentor who's helping attorneys. And other attorneys, when they hear Mary's story, they can relate to it. And they feel she was the victim of undeserved misfortune. And if she was just given a break, she could succeed. Just like if they just got the right breaks, they could succeed. So that's the psychology behind all this. We want to make the hero of the story a victim of undeserved misfortune. It's not their fault that things are a mess. And if they follow your advice, then they get to success. And however that's defined. In Penny's story, it was making $200,000 a year was defined as success. In the law firm, it might be that they're making $200,000 a year as an attorney. Or, I don't want to get hung up on that number, but there's something about success. And that needs to be a visible finish line that when the listener hears the story, they go, yeah, that person got it. And so could I.
Wow. So now this is well and good. And that story is fantastic. You've got a pair of stories there that are very inspiring. I'm racking my brain as you're talking. And I'm like, what is my story? What would you say to somebody that maybe doesn't feel like they have that same defining story or a dramatic backstory?
Oh, you do. We just have to mine it. So how I help people mine it in my workshops is I'll say, okay, I want you to make a list, short list, and we start with the most successful clients. So how I did the Penny Reed story is I started with, okay, who did the biggest jump? Oh, Penny. She went from 0 to 200,000 in 2 years. So I interviewed her to get some of the details to back it up. When I helped her do the book and write the book and publish and do that, I didn't know that she was in an 800 square foot apartment. I didn't know that she had a stack of bills. I had to interview her for that. And by the way, also on that is when we met, she just wanted to be successful. Most of your clients can't define success at the start. So we take some literary license. We start with a success, and at that part of the story, when you get them, like, what would success be? You put that into their mouths then. So when it happens in the story, there's a completion. One person I trained talked about David, and David was a CEO in her CEO peer group. She was the chair of the peer group. And David was almost going bankrupt. But his dream was always to have a business where he had a 55,000 square foot building. David had blind spots, though. So she got a tiger team together from his peer group. Went to her house on a Saturday night. She baked an Italian dinner and they just brainstormed for hours, and they found ways he could cut expenses and ways he could increase revenue. Now, it didn't happen overnight for David. He had to keep working and working at it, but he kept pursuing it. And before long, not only was he out of debt, he actually purchased the 55,000 square foot building.
Wow.
And her message was, it's the wisdom of the team. We all have blind spots. Get help to get ahead. I mean, that's not winning the Academy Award this year, but in your mind, you saw some struggling person like you who had blind spots, like we all do, who had a tiger team help him. Man, I wish I had a tiger team helping me. And then actually crossing the visible finish line where he succeeded so much he could buy that building. So those are the elements of these types of stories.
Okay. I love it. Now, a lot of what you teach involves humor, and you've had some funny asides in these stories. And why does humor apply? Why is it so helpful in storytelling or in persuasion?
Sure. Well, let's go back to Hollywood for a minute. Hollywood wants you to laugh, cry, and kiss $16 goodbye, right? And they know to do this, they need to have an emotional experience. We go to have an emotional experience. We want to be scared at a horror film, or we want to see true love happen, or we want to laugh, or we want to feel noble. So what you're looking for in a story is four things. One, it'll make people think. There's some information that you're going to provide them about your process or your way of doing things that makes them think. Two, if you can make people feel. Penny, we talked about Penny, at that kitchen table with a stack of bills. I painted a picture there, and how many of us have been at a point in life where we had a stack of bills we couldn't pay? So, yeah, I feel for her there. You want to make people feel noble. They do a noble work. There's no nobility to what they do. That's pretty easy for that emotion. But humor is a craft. And I published a book, I think, by the foremost authority on humor, Judy Carter, The New Comedy Bible. Judy doesn't like to brag, but she wrote the Bible twice. The original book was the Comedy Bible, and then we published the New Comedy Bible. Judy is just an expert on the craft. I had heard about her, and I read her book, and it's like a workshop in a book. She used to do the workshop, and very famous people in Hollywood took it, and you know their work from stand-up comedy and movies. But the midterm was to go to an open night mic at a comedy club and do a 3-minute set. The final exam was you had to go back and do it again. And let me tell you, once you learn how to make drunks laugh in the dark, that Rotary Club or the Marketing Association meeting, that's easy. There are techniques, there are skills, the power of three, the misdirection, the setting it up. So you look for things like that you can work into your story. There's also research that I've seen that people who are funny are perceived as more intelligent. So putting some humor in there, even if you have to craft it. I'm a gag writer for people. One of my clients is the former national spokesperson for the FBI, and he's a cybersecurity expert. And he was speaking to the NFL owners group. And he gave me his speech. And because I know the Judy Carter techniques, I just punched it up with some humor and dropped a little humor in there. Did not make him a less serious person or anything like that, but made people think, oh, he makes you think and he makes you laugh too.
That's
it
fantastic.
got me a great wife too. As my wife said, he makes me laugh.
At least
he makes me laugh.
I'm sure she is a delightful woman, and
this is my picture of her. You can't see the mug, but it's a beautiful blonde woman who's saying, "More caffeine. I've got lives to run." So I say she's the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare at our home.
Every household takes at least a couple people to make things work.
Takes a village to raise an idiot.
It does. Henry, there's been a lot of wisdom and a lot of gems in here. Where can people read more about this? Where can they find you if they'd like to work with you? Or
Well, we'll start with
see
free.
you?
They can go
Okay,
to my
great.
website, persuadewithastory.com. I have
Right.
videos, articles, summaries of all this. If you want to buy one of my books on Persuade with a Story, my wife will thank you, my daughter will thank you, my son will thank you, and I will thank you. If you buy 2 copies, I'll come to your house and read it to you. So anyway, those are books, Amazon and all those places have the books. If you want to talk to me about storytelling my main business is I help 36 people write and publish a book every year. So
Wow.
I don't want to be the biggest. I'm like a California winery. We only put 36 cases of reserve out a year. So that's what we do. And you can go to Indie Books, and that's INDIE books, INTL.com. There's events. I do lots of free events where you can come on. If they mention You Read or the podcast, I have a course I do, 2-hour course. I teach them how to answer 7 questions that they need to know before they write a book or promote a book. And I will comp them in. I'll waive the 365 if they mention your name. And they can,
Great.
take that course. I'll even do strategy calls with people. Half-hour strategy call, no selling, no kidding. Just pure content, because I have found that people are smart and they can figure out if working with me would be a good thing for them or not. I don't have to persuade them or trick them or manipulate them. I just be helpful. And the more helpful I am, the luckier I get in business.
Fantastic. I would definitely point anybody your direction that is looking to improve their content, their storytelling. Henry, I can tell you've got a lot of expertise in this area, and I'm looking forward to reading your books myself. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks, Reed. It's so great. And just one message I'll leave with people is that your stories matter. Your stories will help people solve their problems. And that's a noble work.
Said. Thank you very much, Henry.
Thanks, Reed.
Want to stay ahead of what's actually working in marketing right now? Head over to MarketSurge.io and see how we're helping businesses grow smarter, faster, and louder. That's MarketSurge.io, because your next breakthrough shouldn't be a guess.